Too much carnage. That is the topic of today's video. My name is John Delarose. I am a #1 best-selling author and comic creator, and you can sign up for my newsletter, get updates for me on the description below. Also, I've got my Amazon page up if you want to check out my books. If you enjoy Spider-Man, anything, you probably will enjoy my stuff too. So check it out. I appreciate it. Appreciate everybody who supports the channel. All right, this is the Carnage Omnibus, and I was reading this because that Venom versus Carnage movie came out, and I was interested in taking a look at that, which I have not watched yet. And also because of the Absolute Carnage event, I kind of wanted to catch up on the character, see what he's been up to these last couple decades before diving into that. Now, there is something about this, after Maximum Carnage, and I read Maximum Carnage as a kid, and that's kind of what I got into. Played the SNES video game. It was a lot of fun. I loved it, even though, that story really is kind of ridiculous and doesn't hold up the best today. I have a fond spot in my heart for it. But I did notice even back when I was younger that when Carnage returned every time after that, subsequently, it was always just didn't quite feel right. It's like, okay, they already had their big mega event with the character, and now it's just kind of a dumb rehash. It didn't really ever feel the same again. And that actually continued here in this omnibus. This is 1,200 freaking pages of Carnage stories, which I had no idea they even had this many Carnage stories out. And it all takes place from around 2006 forward. So well after I had been a kid reading comics. It's got a nice little art on the interior, other than the dust jacket. And, of course, I've got it upside down in the dust jacket, because I always do this. Whenever I take a dust jacket off for reading and then put it back in, I just make the same mistakes. So we'll flip it over. All right, beautiful red on the inside. Carnage is kind of a dumb character. It's just, it's another symbiote, and this one's even badder than Venom, right? So there it is. And this comprises of a ton of different miniseries. And plus, they gave Carnage an ongoing series. I'm just, laughing about, the idea of that. The character does not deserve being a starring role, let alone having an ongoing series. You got Venom versus Carnage by Peter Milligan, Carnage, Carnage USA, and this had the Clayton Crane art on all of these three series, which is really interesting. It doesn't quite fit the character, and I'll talk about that in a second. Minimum Carnage, which is, of course, a play on Maximum Carnage, and it's a cute idea, which comprises of Scarlet Spider. I guess they had a Scarlet Spider series. I missed that, too. And Venom combined. And Superior Carnage, then, which they were doing Superior Spider-Man and all that, so that makes sense. Deadpool versus Carnage, Axis Carnage, which Axis is another crossover that you have to know about. And here's where it gets kind of funky. You have to know about all these weird crossovers and series in order to read comics these days. They're really tough. Nova 26 and 27, which is kind of plays out of the crossover axis there. And then the whole Carnage series in 2015 of 16 issues. So it's a lot of Carnage, and it's too much, honestly. All the stories end up kind of the same in a lot of ways. And so when they try to twist it later on in the volume here, we'll get to that, it doesn't quite work out. Clayton Crane's art looks really pretty, obviously. I've met him. He was very nice to me. I have actually owned a sketch from him. It's very good stuff. And, of course, this is, as advertised, a Venom versus Carnage deal. Now, the problem with Clayton Crane's art is the cities all look kind of just cold, empty, not much going on. You see the two characters, but it looks almost lifeless in the background. Even though the characters look really cool, they're really detailed. I do enjoy the art for what it is. I don't know. Carnage is just such a fluid character. It just doesn't quite work with this sort of digital setup so well. Spider-Man gets involved in this, and you just have a standard fight here. You get Black Cat back in for the whole feel of the old Maximum Carnage. And Carnage, is trying to have a baby symbiote or something, and I don't quite get it. And they come out with a new one, and it takes over this police officer. It was okay. Eventually there's just this new symbiote again. So that's going to be what I get into in this entire series through here. It seems like everybody just wants to do their take and see. There's actually an explanation page of what's happening in New Avengers, because you got to know what happens in Carnage then before we get into the next series. It's and here's a little bit of that. I guess Sentry rips up Carnage and brings him up into the atmosphere and kills him. And then we get into this miniseries, another Clayton Crane one. This time Spider-Man and Iron Man team up here, as they're teaming up in kind of that Civil War era. And the symbiotes are fighting again. I like the art again. Like I said, it's pretty. It's just very sparse. The backgrounds look really cold. There's not much going on. It's just like for a cartoony, ridiculous villain like Carnage, it just makes it rather silly. It doesn't quite work right. And we have teams going after Carnage, who's escaped, and they're around, and Shriek shows up. Again, Carnage kind of busts her out. Iron Man fights with them. Cletus Cassidy is alive and brought back to life by this, like, scientist who wants to, like, contain the symbiote, and everybody knows that's a bad idea, but, of course, it gets done anyway. And this chick, who's trying to be a mental doctor to Shriek, ends up kind of getting a symbiote of her own again. It's just like there's too many symbiotes, and this is the problem. Is like when this starts to happen, nothing is special anymore, right? The symbiote's Venom's not special anymore. Carnage was, you know, already the first copy of Venom in a way, but now he's not even special anymore. Now we're getting into Carnage USA after that series, and Carnage is on the run. A team of Avengers is hunting him down. He takes over this entire series, and Carnage's powers change at this point to where he, like, the symbiote can control, like, multiple people. It's very bizarre. And I don't really quite know how that works. Didn't seem like the symbiote worked like that in prior issues. But hey, they eventually do chase Carnage down. There's this lady who's kidnapped. Her family's kidnapped, and she's going to have to kill her husband in order to save her children. But Spider-Man ends up kind of intervening in that, even though it's kind of weird. And that's that. So, of course, they beat Carnage at the end of it, and then that's the end of the day. Minimum Carnage. So finally we get back to normal comic art, and I'm kind of happy. I'm really burnt out on that, like, digital art looking sort of thing right now. And Venom and the Scarlet Spider, who used to be Kane. It's not Ben Reilly anymore, who's the Scarlet Spider. And Venom is now Flash Thompson in a Venom suit, who is now a super secret agent controlling the Venom suit. So you got to know a lot about the lore here going on to get into Minimum Carnage. They are getting into this facility together. And actually, I like the regular comic art. It just feels better for Carnage. It just makes more sense. And they end up in the Microverse with Carnage. And that's pretty fun, actually. So that's Minimum Carnage. I like how that happens. Now, the Microverse, I don't know what it is with, like, prophecy stories, but there's a prophecy of something happening. And, like, this Carnage suit, like, doesn't interact well with the molecules down there. And it's supposed to bring about, like, their, like, Armageddon. And if it brings about their Armageddon, of course, because the micro impacts the macro, it's going to destroy the entire universe, which is a little much. I don't think it needed to go there. But that's how they try to keep things interesting, by making it an entire universe sort of thing. So Venom and Scarlet Spider, of course, have to stop this whole thing. This was actually pretty fun. I enjoyed this one. It fits Carnage a little better. And I enjoyed the Flash Thompson Venom versus Carnage too. And the new Scarlet Spider, and that was the end of that. Cool. All right, Superior Carnage. Now we get back into more modern style, like very serious art, which again I don't feel like fits Carnage quite as well. Now it is not that digital, so you kind of get this scary monster, which kind of works a little better. But at this point, I'm kind of burnt out on the whole Carnage concept. So the Wizard actually is trying to take this Carnage symbiote and reform the Frightful Four. And, of course, we get this Superior Spider-Man, who is Dr. Octopus in Peter Parker's body or something like that, trying to fight them. So, who shows up a little bit for just to kind of tie in with Superior Spider-Man there. But Carnage fights them off quite a bit, and you see some fights between villains. The Wizard is portrayed kind of as a dummy a little bit. And we get a lot going on here. Pretty action-packed. I like this. This is a pretty nice double-page spread. The colors really made that work really well. And they kind of don't really get the symbiote on their side like they thought. Womp womp. So it's in the middle of that Superior Spider-Man sort of thing. And so it's like you're either into that or you're not. Then you get a Superior Spider-Man or Superior Carnage Annual, which is kind of odd. And I really like this art style. This is a kind of half manga-y art style that's kind of modern, but Works really well. The Carnage symbiote takes over other people, as you see in this, and kind of rolls around. And here we are. Yay! Back to normal Carnage, kind of. And that's that. Whew. Okay, so we're halfway through this about right now. And that's all those miniseries, like, really setting up the state of things. The problem with, like, a villain is, like, the villain really doesn't hold his own as a lead. You got to have, like, a hero to fight him or something like that. And since the focus is all on Cletus Cassidy, like, he's really a one-trick pony. I'm going to kill everybody. Wow. Okay. Well, great. Again, you know? And so by the time you get to these miniseries with Deadpool, Deadpool's now hunting down Carnage and, like, has some weird connection to him. It's supposed to be kind of comedic. And it is. This is cute. I kind of enjoyed this okay. I don't like this art. This is too cartoony. Like, but like if Clayton Crane's like too far one way, this is too cartoony for me. But that fits Deadpool, I guess, because it is a comedy. So, it is what it is. And of course, Deadpool and hijinks with Carnage. It's pretty fun. Deadpool eventually gets the symbiote, of course, because they all get the symbiote. That's how they all work now, and that's that. Eventually, they go their separate ways, and that's that. Axis is weird. Axis is an event where people, like, flip their moralities. Pretty neat event idea. All these feel like what-if stories. You know, that's the other problem. Everything Marvel now is like, what if superheroes were good and supervillains were bad? Or supervillains were good and superheroes were bad? Okay, well, there you go. Carnage is actually trying to atone for his sins and take down other things. There's this reporter who gets involved. It's actually... by itself, it's a pretty good story. This is probably one of the better ones in here. She kind of helps him against her will to track down an even greater evil. And Carnage helps fight that evil. And eventually, at the end of it, she then betrays him to the police because he's freaking Carnage, and she doesn't want anything to do with that. And then we get into... so that ends, and then Carnage kind of goes off. So then we get these 2 issues of Nova, and I guess Nova was a part of that, and Nova and Carnage were part of the Avengers during that whole deal. It's okay. Nova's like some kid now, and I don't really know too much about him, but you get a good smattering of that character here. I like this art okay. This feels like a comic book. And Carnage is trying to track down Nova during the course of this. And then they kind of end up fighting. So, not the most important. It ties into the Axis thing. And then we get into the new Carnage ongoing series. And I'm just like, at this point, like, you know, the character's so one-dimensional. Like, it's hard for me to really get through this. Like, I'm like, oh, God, am I done yet? And that's the problem with a giant... none of these were meant to be read in a giant omnibus for the whole character like this. My recommendation, if you read these, like, I would read different stories during different time periods, like... as part of those events, maybe, or by themselves, rather than reading this all the way through. And then you get into this. This is the Marvel Point 1 initiative, where they gave Carnage his own series. Now, Gary Conway came and wrote this, who wrote Spider-Man for a long time. Thought that'd be pretty interesting. I was wrong. You get very serious, very dark art as Cletus Cassidy is making his way across the country. You find out about this war vet thing, which doesn't feel like it makes sense at first, until they get into the series. Now, once in the series, Carnage is being brought to this, like, area as a trap, and they're trying to trap him. He ends up going underground. They send a team of army specialists and all that after him, and and Venom, and then, of course, Man-Wolf. So that's pretty interesting. I like the use of Man-Wolf. You don't get enough of him. But it's just, like, it's a little too serious, and there's, like, a little not as much Carnage stuff going on and all that. So here we go. Here it is. And then he finds this, like, door of prophecy in this book where he is the red one who will, you know, bring about this demon. I'm so sick of the prophecy trope. And the fact that Carnage is, like, this, like, harbinger of the prophecy who's going to change reality and all that is just, like, really? I'm just not interested in this. So now he has all these occultists, and he's, like, fighting with them. And it's so dragged out. That's a 6-issue arc just for that. And then he like, disappears. And he's trying to get to this island where there's this gate to, like, really unleash the prophecy. And so he's on this boat. And, of course, they make a new symbiote again. of this girl who then becomes a new symbiote. And I'm losing track of all the symbiotes at this point. There's just so many of them. They're not special. They're not interesting. You see the realism and all that just like doesn't work with Carnage. The girl army lady from before is chasing them down with all the people here. Of course, they do the gratuitous lesbian relationship over the course of that, because that's what modern comics do now. This was just so hard to get through. I just wanted to put this down the entire way. Very boring. Not much happening in every issue. Not enough Carnage for Carnage. You know, you should be showing some slaughter scenes, and you really get this like horror mystery where they go through the boat and like they see dead people, but like they didn't actually see it happen. So it's just everything that's wrong with modern comics is this. The dark colors all the way around, so it's all super saturated looking and kind of bland. Now they got to the island, right? And so you have 6 issues of them getting to the island and then going and trying to find Carnage and stop the whole prophecy from happening. You get some flashbacks because this new symbiote's kind of tied in with Carnage, and you can tell I'm bored. So it's I'm just gonna not bother. I mean, obviously they stop him. There's the new symbiote again. And that's that. So I would say that was the biggest failure out of this whole thing, was the ongoing series. And some of these were all right. They're just kind of like the early ones. They kind of rehash everything way too many times. The Deadpool one gives you a little bit of difference, same with Superior Carnage. But the character is just not enough to hold your attention throughout an entire omnibus. It's tough. I don't like all the realistic art with Carnage either. Doesn't make sense. So I don't know. Overall, I'd call this like a 6.5 out of 10. I mean, if you're really loving Carnage and you just want to read everything Carnage, read this. Otherwise, skip it. Just not worth it. All right, hit that like and subscribe button. We'll be back soon.